Hey, what's up everyone? Ayolol here. Today I'm going to be going over some footage I got from the closed beta of me and some friends doing the Rohendel Abyssal Dungeon, and just commentating over it to give you a feel of what it's like to play BARD and what the quote-unquote end game dungeons are like. So right when you enter, there's some cool cutscene kind of things happening, and our strategy for clearing this trash is we have our gunslinger stay in the back while I'm just kidding, there's no strategy for trash. You can just basically mash your abilities and get rid of them. Trash in this game is pretty short and sweet, unlike some other games like WoW where you might be clearing trash for a long time. The main point of the trash is, well, one, for flavor, and two, to let you build up your identity gauge. This yellow circle here is called the workshop. It's a place where you can change your skills, refresh your items, swap them out, etc. So usually there's a workshop before every boss, sort of like a save point in other RPG games. Now the first boss consists of a bishop and a rook. The main mechanic of this fight is basically that the bishop will periodically channel a party wipe skill, while the rook will fire a big energy ball at a designated target. All you have to do is stand behind the bishop so that she gets hit by the rook's ball, interrupting her channel. Or as Tulsa would put it,
make sure the lady intercepts the dude's big balls.
Aside from that, just look at the red patterns on the ground and stay out of them. Now on the second attempt, while the rook is channeling the big ball, there will also be little castles or rooks that spawn around the bishop. What you have to do is break them with DPS abilities to clear a path so you can line up the ball. If you don't, this happens. Team?
What?
Briefing?
We're dead.
You didn't break the things.
Yeah.
DPSers? Any DPSers?
Dude, I broke the top right.
So what then didn't matter? They was on the bottom.
Yeah, Shandel was going towards the bottom, so I thought he was gonna do it.
So right when I start the fight, I'll open the menu by accident, and then I'll apply my Stigma debuff with Sound Shock, and immediately I'll play my attack buffs as well as my Guardian tune. Your main priority in a group as a bard is to keep up your debuff, and right now in my skill build I have two ways to apply the debuff: Sound Shock and Stigma. So I'll basically try to keep up maximum uptime on the debuff because it makes the boss take 10% more damage from all party members. The next priority I'll do is one of my attack buffs, of which we have two: Heavenly Tune and Ultrasonic Vibration. Heavenly Tune affects everyone basically on your screen, so I'll use it on cooldown, and when the buff expires, I'll try to place down a Sonic Vibration so that as many people as possible can stand in it and get the attack buff. Other than that, I basically use my abilities on cooldown. Now later on, when the fights get more complicated, you can squeeze a lot more efficiency out of your abilities by saving them for certain times, but in this kind of early tier content, you can just spam everything off cooldown and it'll work pretty well. As you can see here, my cooldowns are pretty long because it's tier 1 and we have a low swiftness stat. The more swiftness you have, the more cooldown reduction you'll get. Also, we only have level 1 tripods at this point, so we don't have access to any of the higher level cooldown reduction tripods. I also bring Rhythm Buckshot, which is our counter skill, just because there aren't really better options with low skill points. On bosses like this where there's no counterable ability, I'll just use it on cooldown for a little bit of extra identity gauge. After clearing some more trash, you'll find yourself at the next boss room. The main mechanic of this boss is that at certain points, he will teleport to the center of the room and spawn these 4 phantom swords. At the beginning, everyone will have this debuff called Phantom Cut. If you take one of these swords with the debuff on, it'll wipe the party. What you have to do is wait till the debuff falls off before taking your sword while kiting them around. Once anyone takes a sword, everyone in the party will have their debuffs refreshed. So you have to coordinate with the party to make sure that nobody takes a sword with the debuff on.
Alright, stand away from each other. He's gonna shit out the things. 1,
2.
Whoa, I thought we were going clockwise.
So when you see this yellow bar appear under the boss, you have to quickly stagger or impair the boss to make the yellow bar run out, and after a certain period of time, if you fail, he'll do a party wipe mechanic. As a bard, your main source of impair is Soundholic, which I unfortunately used already right before the mechanic. However, what you can also do is throw a grenade, namely a whirlwind grenade or an earth grenade, which does a big amount of impair. Fortunately for me, we have a warlord and a gunslinger in the party, so even without me contributing too much, we have really good impair. So here's the first mechanic. You see the guide message come up and the boss teleports to the middle. What you should do is have everyone spread out, ideally in 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions, and The general rule for these dungeons, especially in pugs, is to just take the swords in order of party number. You can see on the left that every person has a number beside their name. That's their party number. So if you're party number 1, you should take the sword first, and since I'm party number 2, I should take the sword second here. As you can see here, I took the sword second, but there was some miscommunication with 3 and 4, so we wiped. So for the first mechanic here, we spread out, and you can see here that I actually take my sword too early, which leads to a wipe. If you want to be safe and not grief the party like me, make sure you see that the debuff completely falls off before you try to take your sword, or else this will happen. Other than that, there's not much to say. There's one last mechanic I want to describe to you guys, which is here. When the boss flashes blue like this, that means that he becomes counterable. What that means is you can use a skill that has the counter attack property to interrupt his attack and knock him down for a brief period of time. Keep in mind that counter attacks have to be hit from the head, so if you're behind the boss, that's not going to work. As you can see here, I'm positioned right in front of the boss and I see him flash blue. So I immediately press my counter attack, Rhythm Buckshot. As you can see here, the words counter attack flash on the screen. That means that you did a successful counter attack. If you can hit a counter, that's the perfect time to do DPS, so it's a good idea for all your party members to use their synergy effects. So for Hildebrand Palace, or Dream Palace, the first boss is the Mirror Boss. The main mechanic of this boss is that periodically she will channel these big tidal waves that will roll around the map, and you have to avoid them by going to the red colored mirrors to teleport yourself to the other side of the wave. Sounds a little complicated, but in reality it's not that hard as long as you can recognize colors. So when she teleports to the middle, you'll see your camera zooms out a bit and the tidal wave spawns either from left to right, right to left, top to bottom, etc. You can see where the wave spawns by the purple zone on the map, and that means that we have to go from left to right. As you can see, there's a yellow mirror on the right side of the map, which means that we have to take the yellow mirror on the left side to teleport over. Now the next wave is spawning from bottom to top, and you can see that there's a white mirror on the bottom, which means you want to take the white mirror on the top. Now I tried to spacebar through this for science, and I actually survive, but this is the only time I actually pull it off. I think the timing is pretty tough, and if you mess up you'll die instantly, so I recommend just doing the mirror mechanic instead of trying to spacebar through this. You can also see a purple mirror on the bottom and a purple mirror on the top, and actually you should never take the purple mirror because the purple mirror always sends you to the boss. So you have to take the white mirror in this case. If you take the purple mirror, it'll teleport you right to the middle and you'll die to the wave. There's another mechanic here which we call the Belganus pattern or Belga pattern. It's named after a guardian boss in tier 5 called Belganus, which does the exact same pattern. And this pattern is actually reused a lot in a bunch of raids, so it's good to know how to deal with it. Periodically, you see when the boss does a big red AoE here, there will be one slice that's safe. Also, there's a purple ball that swirls around her, which tells you the direction of the attack. As you can see here, the balls here are going clockwise, which means that you want to start on the safe slice and then move clockwise around the boss. Now for the last boss of Hildebrand Palace, which has 2 phases, Belshazzar. Now the beginning of this boss fight is pretty simple. All you have to do is dodge her attacks, which you can basically just watch with your eyes and get out of the red zones. The first mechanic here is when she teleports to the middle and she'll tilt your camera up like this and zoom out. There are these rolling meteors that come down from the top, and if you get hit by any of them, you'll get knocked down. This mechanic continues until you interrupt her, so if you're not good at dodging the mechanics, you'll get knocked all the way down to the bottom into those rotating blades of death, and you'll die a slow and painful death. Now the way you interrupt it is like this, where one person will randomly be targeted with this red AoE. After a short period of time, a red meteor will fall from the sky. You have to bring the meteor right on top of the boss to interrupt this attack. The trick is to dodge the meteors while having the red buff on you and staying close enough to the boss to drop the meteor on her without getting knocked down. Other than that, it's more dodging until the next meteor phase. At 7 bars, she does the second meteor mechanic, and you just have to do the same thing. One tip I want to give you here is that you really want to save your get up attack because it's on a 30-second cooldown, and if you get knocked down, it's sometimes better to just stay knocked down instead of getting up right away. You really want to save your get up attack for when you have the red AoE, and let's say you get knocked down, then you can use your get up attack and immediately dash to the boss to drop the AoE on her. You can see here that I actually get the red AoE, so I stand right next to the boss when the AoE is about to drop and I use Sonic Vibration. Sonic Vibration with the right tripod actually gives you super armor, which means you can't get knocked down. As you can see here, the boulder passes right through me while I'm channeling it, so I can stay in the right spot to drop the AoE without getting knocked down. I gotta say, it feels pretty good when you pull that off. Now the second phase is more of the same, just stand out of the AoEs. If you ever see a blue AoE on the ground like this, that means that the AoE comes with a CC or crowd control effect. For example, this blue pizza looking AoE, if you get hit by this you'll get imprisoned, which means you'll lose control of your character. The only way to get out of imprisonment is by your party members breaking you out using multi-hit attack. As a bard, if you have the Guardian Tune level 10, it actually blocks one CC effect. So if you see a blue AoE and you use your level 10 Guardian Tune, you can actually negate the crowd control effect, but since I don't have enough skill points, I don't actually have level 10 Guardian Tune. Just get out of it. Alright, time for the third and final boss. So I'm just going to pause the video here and talk about my skills briefly. I start off by applying my debuff, which is the most important thing to do because it gives 10% more damage to everyone in the party. The next thing I'll do is cast my attack buff, Heavenly Performance, and I'll always start off with Heavenly Performance because it affects everyone and also gives a mana regen and attack speed buff. It's by far our best attack buff, so I want to use it first. Next thing I'll do is play Guardian Tune. I'm pretty far away from everyone, and Guardian Tune has a massive 24 meter range, so it's a much better option for giving some damage reduction rather than Wind of Music, which would require me to go up and actually be next to my allies. Now after playing my Guardian Tune here, I've basically used my most important abilities. As you can see, my Sound Shock is back off cooldown, so I would need to apply my debuff again. At the same time, I've noticed that I'm actually in front of the boss, aka standing in front of its head, so I'm looking for a counterattack in case it happens. As you can see, the boss flashes blue, and I happen to be in the right spot and I was already waiting for it, so I instantly pressed my counterattack instead of using Sound Shock. As a bard, after you've casted your debuff, your attack buff, and maybe one of your defensive buffs, you always want to be looking for a counterattack. It isn't necessarily your job to counter as a support because a lot of the time you won't be able to hit it, but I will say that it is easier as a support to hit a counterattack. The main reason is that your skills don't have as much of a priority as DPS skills, where they might be trying to fit all their skills into a tight rotation, and they can't really afford to wait around as that would mean a massive loss of DPS. As a support, you have the privilege of being more conservative with your skills because you're not always just mashing everything on cooldown. Because of that, as a bard, if you ever have any downtime, you should be fishing for a counterattack as you have nothing else to do. Now at 37 bars, the first mechanic happens. Belshazzar will channel a shield that protects her from this lava golem's attack. In order to break her shield, you need to stagger her, completely removing the yellow bar within a certain period of time. Now the best thing to do here is to have everyone throw a whirlwind or earth grenade, which generates a large amount of stagger. As you can see, if everyone throws a grenade, almost half of the bar goes down right away, making the mechanic a lot simpler. Now at this point, I look at my skills and I realize that I don't actually have that many skills up. Our biggest impaired skills are Sound Shock, Soundholic, and Sonic Vibration, and then followed up by Wind of Music and Stigma. Fortunately, this party has really high stagger with a Gunlancer especially, a Sorceress, as well as a Gunslinger. Even though I don't have any skills off cooldown, we finished the mechanic pretty easily thanks to the Whirlwind Grenades. Immediately after you see me casting Symphonia, that's because I had one bar of identity, and after you stagger her, you get a period of time where you can just wail on her, which means it's important to stack all your DPS buffs. Right after this happens, I'll use my 2-bar Serenade of Courage, apply my debuff, as well as play Heavenly Tune. So here I just played my debuff, and my Heavenly Tune is on cooldown. I'm looking for a chance to cast Sonic Vibration. Now if you didn't know already, Sonic Vibration has a small AoE circle that, if the party members want to receive the attack buff, they need to actually be standing on the circle. If you look here, we have 3 party members, a Gunlancer, a Sorceress, and a Gunslinger. They happen to be standing in what I would call the Triangle of Pain, which means as a bard, you can only ever hit one of these people with the attack buff. So who do you prioritize? This is one of the major benefits that paladins have over bards because both of their attack buffs affect the entire screen. As a bard, this is where we have to put our thinking caps on. Now the easiest way is to just slap it on top of the boss and hope that whoever is nearby can walk into the circle and get the buff. The second easiest thing to do is, if you're playing with a static party, you should generally know who does the most damage in your party or who has the best gear and try to prioritize that person. Here what I do is something called Sonic Vibration Buffering. It's when I press the button for Sonic Vibration but don't actually cast it. This is because I'm constantly trying to reposition and look for the best place to place the AoE buff. Ideally I want to be able to hit 2 or more people with the buff. In addition, you'll notice that I've been playing with party effects on, even though it makes it a lot harder to see the boss because of the skill effects for my party members. Now I don't recommend this for new players, but playing with party effects on does have some advantages. I'll take this time to briefly explain a little more advanced tactic. Now the theory behind attack buffs is that you should just try to not overlap them and get as high of an uptime as possible. However, if you're really trying to push damage within a certain burst window, it's important to line up your buffs with the main damage dealing abilities of your DPS. Of course, this requires you to have a lot of game knowledge, as you need to know how every class plays and exactly when their biggest, hardest hitting skills come in their rotation. This is one of the main theories behind sonic vibration buffering. As you can see, I keep pressing and cancelling my sonic vibration. I'm looking for a better place to place it so that I can hit more than one person, and also I'm waiting for an opportunity where I can see one of my DPS casting one of their big hitting abilities. For Gun Lancer, that would be their charge cannon. For Gunslinger, that would be their target down or their zero ray. And for Sorceress, of course, you have the big meteor, the lightning, and the great fire. So while I'm buffering, I actually hear the sound effect of my Gunslinger casting zero ray. At the same time, I noticed that my Gun Lancer and my Gunslinger are both standing within the AoE. Because I've been buffering my cast the whole time, I already have the AoE target window open. That means I don't have to waste time targeting while my Gunslinger is already using their highest DPS move. At the same time, I can see my Sorceress isn't actually attacking and she's just moving into position. This makes this an easy choice, so I position my Sonic Vibration like this, and I let it go. At the same time, my Gun Lancer notices the buff, gets into position, and uses his highest DPS move, making this a win-win. Here's the puddle mechanic. Periodically, each person will get this puddle around them, and after a short period of time, it drops an AoE debuff zone on the ground that does damage over time. You just have to spread out, get it away from the boss, and drop it in a place where it won't mess you up. At the same time, at 27 bars, this shield mechanic happens again, so we just go ahead, I throw my Whirlwind Bomb, Sound Holic, which is our greatest impair, followed by Sound Shock, Rhythm Buckshot, and then at that point the boss is already impaired, so I immediately play my attack buff, Heavenly Tune, followed by my Stigma, which applies the 10% damage debuff. At the same time, the last mechanic is happening in the background, which is really bad timing for us. As you can see, one person, in this case Tulls, gets an X on them, as well as 3 orbs above their head. The way to beat this mechanic is to have everyone else point their lasers at the person with the X, filling up the 3 orbs. Now the easiest way to point your character is by setting an auto attack in the direction that you want to point. An auto attack will automatically turn your character, so it's the best way to quickly reposition the way your character is facing. If you're trying to adjust the line by moving around left and right, making small adjustments, you're going to have a bad time. Just put your mouse behind the person that you want to look at and auto attack. You can do this with the C button as well. If you did this right, all 3 bars should fill up and you should be able to avoid the next mechanic, which is a giant meteor that will wipe you. Unfortunately, we only have 2 bars filled. I think that's because I don't have direct line of sight to the target, which means that the last orb didn't fill. You can watch what happens. You get pulled in and imprisoned, which means there's no way for you to dodge this meteor, which will kill everyone. Of course, we already know that it's a wipe, so I just immediately hit the restart button. Again here, as soon as the fight starts, I cast my Sound Shock, and then as my Sound Shock is casting, I notice that she's counterable. I'm right in front of the boss, so again, out of reflex, you want to immediately just reach for your counter button and hit it. I can see that the reason I'm not really casting my abilities and auto attacking is because the boss is already at 35 bars. Now the first mechanic happens at 37 bars. Since she's already under that threshold, that means that as soon as she finishes this next attack, she'll be doing the mechanic. I really want to save my skills for the stagger mechanic, so I'm just standing around auto-attacking. As you can see, the mechanic happens, and I have every one of my skills up that has impair. Start with Sound Holic, Sound Shock, Whirlwind Bomb, Stigma, and we're good to go. Now while I have time to reposition, after casting my attack buff, I'll actually stand in front of the boss. Like I said, I'm fishing for a counter while my abilities are on cooldown because I have nothing else to do. Luckily, as soon as she stands up, she does the counterable move and I'm already in position. I just slam my button that I've been waiting for. So here I get the X, so I just stand away and then stop moving so everyone can auto attack and look towards me. Here I actually get the circle on me, as you can see, and it takes me a while to realize I have it. Once I can see that the circle is on me, I immediately stop moving, and luckily our Gun Lancer manages to get into position, despite me accidentally placing the circle really far away from him. Now once the person with the X goes into the circle, the other 2 people with the lasers should just look at them, again using an auto attack. One thing to remember here, if you have the circle, don't move. It's easier for the person to run into the circle than it is for you to move the circle and target them. If you do all these things, the Broshaza will be down in no time. That's gonna be it for this one, guys. I'm sorry if this was a little longer. These commentaries get a little long while I'm trying to explain stuff. Let me know in the comments if you prefer longer or shorter videos, and in the future I'll try to keep it more concise, or I'll keep explaining it in depth like this. Thanks for watching. This has been Ayu, and until next time, bye you.